I am a 27-year-old guy named Dylan, and I swear my entire personality was shaped by being the responsible one in a house where responsibility was treated like a resource that could be harvested from me whenever the adults felt tired. Growing up, I was the kid who handled everything. I got a part-time job at 15 because I hated asking my dad for money. I paid for half my car at 17 by working evenings and weekends. At 20, when my dad lost his job, I was the one quietly sliding my last few $100s into the utility bill drawer so the lights would stay on. I was raised to pick up slack even when the slack was not mine. Then my dad remarried when I was 19. Her name was Valerie. She arrived with perfectly styled hair, two matching 8-year-old twins, and a level of entitlement that could power a small town. The twins, Mason and Maddie, were energetic, loud, and constantly sticky. They were not bad kids, but they listened with the same reliability as a microwave that sparks every time you press a button. Valerie made it clear from day one that her children were the center of the universe. I was more like a background character whose job was to be helpful but never important. By the time I was 27, I had my own tiny rental house about 15 minutes away. It was small, clean, quiet, and mine. I worked remotely in information technology and occasionally took freelance projects so I could afford things like food and functioning appliances. Valerie saw one thing in that situation. I was at home often. To her, that meant I was available. And to her, available meant she did not need to ask anything in good faith. She could simply inform me of what I would do for her. Everything started on a Monday that I thought would be normal. I was halfway through debugging a client's software when my phone rang. I answered without looking, expecting a coworker. Instead, before I could even say a word, Valerie greeted me with, "And what are you doing for the next week?" No hello, no explanation. Just immediate scheduling of my time that she did not own. I told her I had work, deadlines, and a major project coming up. She made an annoyed sound and said that she wanted me to watch the twins for the entire week because my dad had a business trip and she had taken extra shifts. I reminded her that I work full-time and freelance on top of that. I am not a babysitter, and even if I was, nobody drops a week of childcare on someone like that. She did not appreciate my logic. A bit later, my dad called, trying to guilt me in that resigned parental tone. He said that since I was home anyway, helping with the twins would be helping the family. I told him that helping the family did not mean being manipulated into unpaid labor. He sighed, said I was being dramatic, and we ended the conversation with me thinking the issue was closed. It was not. Wednesday morning arrived like a slap in the face. I had not even finished my first sip of coffee when my doorbell started ringing, in a pattern that felt like the person outside was trying to beat a high score. I opened the door and stared at an unbelievable scene. Mason and Maddie standing there with backpacks hanging off their shoulders, jackets half zipped, hair wild, and a massive note taped to Maddie's hoodie. The note, written in blue marker like a child's birthday card, said, "You are not busy at all. Here is a free job for you. Be back Saturday." There was a smiley face at the end, which only made my blood pressure rise faster. The kids burst inside like they were entering an amusement park. They tossed their backpacks, kicked off their shoes, and asked what was for breakfast. I tried calling my dad. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I called Valerie. Her phone went directly to voicemail as well. I called her again, and again, and again. They ignored every single call. I tried to think of the most responsible thing to do, and unfortunately the answer was that I needed to take care of the kids until someone with a functioning sense of responsibility returned. The kids immediately turned my house into a chaos zone. Mason decided that my dog Baxter was a climbing structure. Maddie thought my living room furniture was a gymnastics mat. They dropped cereal on the floor and stepped on it for added texture. They played hide and seek in places that did not even make sense. At one point, I found Mason sitting inside the laundry basket wearing my sunglasses and claiming he was a spy. By lunchtime, I realized they had eaten everything in my fridge except a shriveled carrot and an expired container of yogurt. I ordered pizza for them for $34.28. I texted Valerie that she owed me that amount for food. I watched her read receipts turn off the instant my message delivered. By the second day, I understood why childcare workers deserve raises. The twins managed to drag toys from one end of the house to the other. There were crumbs on surfaces that I did not even know had surfaces. Someone wrote Baxter is silly on my bathroom wall in crayon. I had to stop Mason from feeding Baxter 5 marshmallows at once. I had to stop Maddie from trying to make a potion in my sink, using toothpaste, soap, and barbecue sauce. Every time I cleaned one mess, another appeared behind me like my house was spawning them procedurally. By Friday, I was exhausted. My house looked like a daycare center that had seen battle. I had bags under my eyes, a headache that lasted 3 days, and only half my work completed because I kept needing to stop the kids from jumping off things. I discovered I had 67 missed calls from unknown numbers. I learned later that Valerie blocked me, and my dad, in sheer brilliance, had set his phone to Do Not Disturb for the entire trip. They had no idea where their kids were. They just assumed I would figure it out. Saturday finally rolled around. I was sitting on my couch, staring at the ruins that used to be my living room, while the twins happily watched cartoons, completely unaware of the emotional and physical destruction they had unleashed. I heard footsteps on my porch, and then a knock. At 9 in the morning, the front door burst open so hard that Baxter barked like the world was ending. My dad and Valerie stormed inside without knocking, moving like they expected to catch me doing something criminal. Valerie immediately shouted, "Where are my babies?" in a tone that rattled my windows, and then she just froze in place like a glitching game character who ran out of programming. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the absolute disaster zone her children had created under her brilliant plan of abandoning them with no notice. The house looked like it had survived a small, enthusiastic riot. Toys were scattered across every inch of the floor like the aftermath of a toy store explosion. Dishes were stacked in chaotic towers in the sink because the twins believed in starting 3 meals and finishing none. Blankets were spread around like someone had tried to build a fort, then given up halfway through. Baxter sat proudly in the corner wearing a sparkly tiara Maddie had forced onto him, looking strangely content, as though he had accepted his new royal responsibilities. My dad blinked at the chaos like he could not comprehend how this happened in less than a week. He looked at me with that disappointed dad face he always used when he did not want to admit he caused a problem. He said, "Dylan, what happened here?" in a tone that made it sound like he thought the mess was my doing. I stared at him with the calmness of someone who had experienced too much in too little time and replied, "What happened is you abandoned 2 kids on my porch for 4 days with a sticky note." What did you think was going to happen? Valerie snapped her head toward me and screeched that I should have kept things cleaner, as though keeping things clean was even remotely possible when 2 8-year-old tornadoes were living their best chaotic lives under my roof. She stood there acting offended at the state of the house, and I could not stop the laugh that almost escaped. I gave her a look so sharp that it practically sliced through the last remaining thread of my patience. I asked her how she imagined a full-time babysitter for 4 days would manage this mess without the ability to clone themselves. Then I told her, "How much did you think a full-time babysitter for 4 days cost, Mama?" Because I have itemized every expense, every activity, every meal, and the money I did not earn because I could not work. Her face shifted into a strange blend of confusion and annoyance, like she did not understand why the world did not operate on whatever delusional system she believed she lived in. I walked over to the kitchen counter, picked up the neatly stapled packet I had printed earlier that morning, and handed it to her. It was a very long printed bill, complete with receipts, times, dates, and notes. I had worked on it with the precision of someone who had been pushed too far. The total at the bottom read $1,482.19. She blinked at the number like it was written in a different language. Then she laughed. It was not a nervous laugh or an embarrassed laugh. It was a full, mocking, "I think you are an idiot" laugh. She laughed. Actually laughed. I said, great. Courts will not. Valerie's laugh cut off abruptly when she realized I was not backing down. She crossed her arms and tried to deliver her favorite line whenever she wanted to rewrite reality. She said she never agreed to pay anything. She said it like it was some kind of legal shield, as if claiming ignorance would magically erase 4 days of childcare she had dumped on me without warning. She tried to act like the bill was a joke, like I had overreacted, like this entire situation was somehow my fault for not cheerfully accepting the kids she abandoned on my doorstep. Unfortunately for her, reality is not based on whatever fantasy world she lives in. I had already looked up the law the night before because I had been pushed beyond the limits of my sanity. Leaving children unattended at someone's home without consent and disappearing for 4 days is legally considered child abandonment. Not poor communication. Not babysitting with attitude. Abandonment. The kind that gets the police involved. The kind that looks very bad in court. My dad's expression changed the moment I calmly explained that. He had been annoyed before, but now he looked fully panicked, the way someone looks when their brain is finally piecing together how catastrophically stupid their decision was. He said he did not think it was that serious. I walked him through the timestamps on the doorbell camera. I showed him the still frame of the kids standing on my porch with backpacks bigger than their torsos. I showed him the note Valerie taped to Maddie's hoodie like she was sending a package through the mail. Then I scrolled through the screenshots of my unanswered calls. Dozens of attempts, all ignored, all timestamped, all proof. My dad's face went gray as the weight of it hit him. Valerie looked like she wanted to snatch the phone out of my hand, but even she could see the evidence was airtight. Even if she tried to lie, she would not be able to lie around timestamps and video footage. The best part came from outside the house. Specifically, my aunt. My Aunt Denise is the kind of person who treats family drama like a competitive sport, and prides herself on always having the most devastating commentary ready. She found out what happened because my dad called her in a panic, probably hoping she would tell him I was overreacting. He clearly forgot who he was dealing with. Within 20 minutes, the entire extended family group chat erupted. Aunt Denise lit them up like fireworks. She typed paragraph after paragraph dissecting every single bad decision they made. She pointed out that abandoning kids at someone's home without their consent is illegal. She pointed out that I had always been responsible and helpful, and that they had taken advantage of me for years. She pointed out that Valerie did not get to play the victim when she was the one who taped a note onto a child instead of using her adult words. She accused them of treating me like a free servant and told them that if she had been in my place, she would have called the police before the kids even finished stepping off the porch. The best part was that other relatives chimed in. Cousins, uncles, family friends. People who usually kept quiet were suddenly very outspoken. Half the family immediately took my side because Denise framed it in the clearest, most undeniable way. They dumped kids on me like I was a free daycare service and then disappeared. By the time Dad and Valerie checked their phones again, they were already being roasted like it was a family holiday meal. Valerie became furious. She started muttering under her breath that I was manipulating everyone. She said I twisted the story. She said I exaggerated what happened. Hearing her pretend she was the wronged one would have been funny if it was not so exhausting. She claimed I poisoned the family against her, which was interesting, considering she was the one who had spent years using me for free labor while treating me like a handy household appliance that just happened to be human. My dad, who had been pacing back and forth, rubbing the back of his neck, finally stopped. The fight drained out of him. For the first time in years, he looked at me like he was actually seeing me instead of seeing the convenience I provided him. He said he was sorry. Not in the dismissive way he sometimes said it after stepping on someone's foot. This was a real apology. He admitted they had gone too far. He admitted they were wrong to leave the kids without asking. He admitted he ignored my calls. He admitted they messed up and said they would pay the bill. Once the dust settled and the shock wore off, the bill I handed them became the center of several extremely uncomfortable discussions between Dad and Valerie. I did not ask for details, but based on the tension radiating off both of them like heat from a car hood in August, those conversations were not calm or productive. Dad understood the legal danger and the moral failure. Valerie understood the financial hit. Together, they understood that for the first time in years, I had drawn a line they could not cross and could not manipulate away. The following week, I received a transfer notification on my phone. It was the exact amount on my bill, $1,482.19. Every cent accounted for. No rounding down, no arguments, no passive-aggressive comments attached to the payment. The money just appeared. And the best part was hearing from my aunt later that Valerie had to take extra shifts to cover her half. She had spent years assuming I was free labor, years assuming my time belonged to her, and now she was working nights and early mornings paying me back for the stunt she thought she would get away with. There was something beautifully poetic about that. A few days after the payment, Dad asked to talk to me privately. He came to my house alone, which already told me everything I needed to know because Valerie never missed an opportunity to hover. He sat across from me with the stiff posture of someone bracing for impact, and he said they would not ask me to babysit again. Ever. He said it with a seriousness I had not heard from him in a long time. It was the closest he had come in years to acknowledging that I had my own life, and that being helpful did not mean being available for exploitation. I could tell the situation had scared him more than he let on. The panic from the abandonment issue, the family backlash, the undeniable video evidence, the legal consequences they narrowly avoided, it had all finally forced him to look at things clearly. Valerie, meanwhile, had not spoken a single word to me since that morning in my living room. Not a text, not a call, not a passive-aggressive emoji in the family chat. Nothing. The silence was delicious. It was the kind of silence people pay good money for in therapy. Having her out of my messages, my expectations, and my daily life felt like uninstalling a glitchy computer program that had been slowing my system down for years. I decided I was not going to let this situation repeat itself. I am responsible, not naive. So I installed an upgraded camera on the porch facing the walkway and the street. A real one this time, not the tiny doorbell camera my dad gave me years ago that he pretended was an exciting gift, but was really a hand-me-down he wanted to get rid of. This new camera sends alerts instantly, records in high definition, and starts storing footage before motion even reaches the frame. If someone tries to leave kids, pets, or random parcels on my porch at dawn again, I will see it before I even decide whether to open the door. And if someone tapes another note to a child and pretends I volunteered for it, that footage will go straight to the authorities. The twins, thankfully, are doing fine. They did not know what their parents had done, and it was not their fault. I saw them once at a family dinner, and they hugged me like nothing happened, which is exactly how it should be. They are kids, and none of this is on them. Baxter still wears his tiara sometimes. I do not know how he kept it, but he has chosen violence and fashion, and I respect that. As for me, I made it clear through my actions, my evidence, my boundaries, and the bill they paid that I refused to be a free babysitter again. And now my family knows I mean it.